Well, hello, everybody. Today we're going to talk about business funding and also business credit. And a lot of you have come up to me and said, I need a loan or I need a line of credit or just got this contract and I'm going to need a lot of equipment in order to fulfill it. Or maybe it's even working capital because, the government pays a little slow. Sometimes it's 60 days, sometimes it's 90 days. But you've got bills to pay and you don't have the capital in order to do that. So before you even get your very first contract, one of the most important things you can do is to get your credit, your business credit taken care of, start looking at different funding options, and also figure out how much you're going to need. And so today we have Tommy Thornburg. He's from Prime Corporate Services, and you guys have heard me talk about Prime Corporate Services. They are a partner of ours for BizCentral USA. They're really great. They've helped several of my clients as far as getting their business set up correctly. I know some of you have had some of those challenges where your business wasn't set up. And here's the thing, they do legal things, they do accounting things, and you're good as a small business owner at what you do. Let someone else do all the business stuff that you don't like to do rather than pushing it aside. And that's where Prime Corporate Services, that they can help you with all those different things. Today we are going to talk about business credit, business funding, but just know that they have a bunch of different services, and so we're gonna talk about that a little bit about. And Tommy, can you tell me a little bit more about the overall things that Prime Corporate Services does right now, overall, and then we'll dig into the nitty gritty for the business funding and credit.
Okay, great. Yeah, of course. And thank you for having me. Thank you for putting this together. And I can't believe it's been over a year that we've been working together. Sometimes it feels like a week and sometimes it feels like 5 years, right? But Prime Corporate, so we were established in 2012. And when we first started, the whole goal was, how do we provide business owners with information that they need from a legal and a financial standpoint? Because to your point, whether you're pre-contract or post-contract, I've never met an entrepreneur that says, I wish I had less money. That's never happened, right? So we do entity structuring, LLCs, corporations, reviews, making sure that everything's set up properly. We have a full team of accountants, bookkeepers, tax preparers. So any of your tax needs, we also are able to assist in making sure that you're able to keep more money in your corner. I've got a full team of attorneys. So we do a lot of estate plans, trust wills, living wills, power of attorneys. And then what we're going to talk about today, of course, is business credit, corporate funding, and what the different options are based off of your personal credit, your business credit, your revenue. The bottom line is, even if you're pre-revenue, to your point, you can build business credit so that you're prepared for the future. But those are the areas that we primarily focus on, are those four services.
Okay. So let's dig into business credit, probably business credit first. And like I was saying in the introduction, I think it's really good as, and I'm as an accountant, I'm always looking for the future of making sure that businesses really understand their financial situation as it is right now, because it's going to be important for the future. It's really, one of the things, there's a famous quote that, you can't hit any of the targets and goals that you don't make. And if you don't see that target, if you don't know what that goal is going to be, and most of my clients, they are certified and they are trying to get a government contract. They're trying to get a corporate contract. And that requires funding that may be beyond what they currently have for their capital, because it does take time. Any business, they're not going to pay you once you've completed it right away, especially if it's a big amount. And generally in the state contracts, it could be up to 90 days. Federal, it could take 60 to 90 days, even longer if there's a dispute on the contract or something's wrong. And corporate wise, it could be as early as a couple weeks or longer. So let's talk about, why is business credit so important and some of the basics of it.
Yeah, I love what you said. I think that failing to prepare is preparing to fail, I believe is the line that I've heard before. And I couldn't agree more. If you don't know what your profit and loss is, if you don't know where you stand from a credit standpoint, you don't even know what your options are. So it feels limiting. It feels like you don't have the resources that are necessary in order to fulfill the job. And when it comes to credit specifically, there's a lot of different options. I mean, what we're most well known for is taking a business owner, helping them establish with Dun and Bradstreet, Experian, Equifax, all the credit bureaus to where they can get trade vendor lines of credit to build up their credit profile so that in 60, 90 days, now they can go get major credit cards at 0% and eventually get lines of credit. However, the flip side to that is there's a lot of people that we work with that say, that sounds good, but I need money yesterday, Tommy. So when we run into situations like that, if you haven't built a solid Paydex profile, which is a credit profile for your business, it usually is going to fall back onto your personal credit. So if you have usually a 700 or above, sometimes we see 680 and above, there's credit hybrid options where you can get funding in the form of credit cards at 0%. You can build business credit. You can get lines of credit. There's other options that we look at, leveraging retirement accounts. Of course, SBA loans that you're very familiar with, equipment loans. So it's not like it's one size fits all. And I think that's important for people to know. Setting up your business the right way is critical. And I know you and I have talked about this previously, Janet, but do you have everything in a row to where when you go apply, whether it be a contract or a business line of credit, that you are giving yourself the best chance of approval? And I think the biggest problem people make is that answer is no. So if we can help make sure that everything's set up properly and then put you in the buckets that you apply for, it increases your chance of success in getting funding, no matter what the amount or how you get the funding in place to be able to fulfill the contract.
So what do you think are some of the three areas consistently that hurt people in trying any small business and trying to get a loan? Is it that they is it their accounting records are either they don't have accounting records or they're all over the place because they don't have an accountant, they only see the accountant once a year? Is it because their credit rating personally is so bad? I mean, what are some of the three areas that are key top areas that are hinder somebody getting a good funding that they should start working on?
Yeah, this is a great question. I would break this answer up into two different pieces. So I would say pre-revenue and post-revenue. If you're a brand new business owner and you don't have any revenue, one of the common mistakes that I see is people don't think that they can build business credit. Even if you're pre-revenue, you can take the steps necessary to build your credit profile for your business so that when the time comes, you now have access to getting the additional funding. So I think that goes back to the planning aspect. The second thing that I see is exactly what you mentioned. We tell people, because we have a full tax service as well, tax planning and tax filing, two different things. You know that as a CPA, right? When
Yeah.
you're planning for your taxes throughout the course of the year, if you don't know what your profit and loss is, you can't make educated decisions that are going to benefit your business for the future. If you're preparing your
Yeah.
taxes in February, March, and April, all you can do is cost seg, depreciation, or put money into a retirement account, right? So I think that understanding your profit and loss, taking the steps necessary to proactively build credit profiles. And then the third is probably the most common that I know that you've seen a lot of. And that's not having a proper operating agreement. That's not having your LLC or your corporation set up to be the most favorable, whether it's a women, minority, veteran. You don't have what you need from an operating agreement standpoint to increase your chances of getting the contracts or getting the funding And I would say those are the three most common that we run into.
Yeah, and that's a good point. A lot of a lot of accountants or a lot of small businesses don't realize that CPAs and accountants, once they're done with the final extension form that's in September or October, depending on what kind of return that they are working on, they have this like time between October and when January 1st hits. That's kind of open. And when I was working in public accounting, one of the things that you want to do is go in to see your accountant and say, okay, talk to me, because you're still in that tax year where you can still maneuver and make some decisions before the end of the tax year so that you don't have this huge tax bill, or if you're planning on getting a loan in the future, you don't want to maximize so that you are in such a negative for your business that oh yeah, you don't have to pay taxes. But when a bank looks at that, they look at this huge loss on your tax return. They were like, are we ever going to get our money back from a loan if we give you a loan? So having those conversations, and the great thing about Prime Corporate Services is you have everything there. So you can have those conversations and say, okay, a good accountant, a good tax person is going to say, what's coming up with you for your business, for your future, so we can make sure that we balance everything together. Because if you take a step back away from your own business, you can say, let's say you were just buying a house. If you were self-employed and trying to buy a house and you were going to a mortgage company and saying, yeah, I'm self-employed, I want to buy this house, but and they'll say, here's your business tax return if that's your only income, but they're seeing a negative $50,000 loss because you had a good account that was trying to maximize all your expenses. Well, that the bank's not going to is going to look at you going, do you have anything else? Because they don't see any flow coming in. And so you gotta, if you're not a numbers person, that's okay. I never was surprisingly, I was never a numbers person before I became an accountant. You just kind of learn this stuff. And that's why there are different professions that you can go to Prime Corporate Services and they can walk you through, okay, have you thought about this and everything else? And that's why the great thing about them is having that complete package right there. Yeah. So with the business credit and the funding and the taxes and everything else like that.
One of the thoughts I have as I'm hearing you is I couldn't agree more. We have the luxury of having a full team of CPAs and attorneys. And I'm sure you can relate with this. If you go ask a question to an attorney, I joke that the answer you get is, well, it depends. And that's usually 10 different attorneys are going to have the different opinions, but it depends. Attorneys are there to protect your assets. So they're going to lean more towards the entity structuring and the overall asset protection. Accountants, no disrespect to the CPA Janet over there, a lot of times, I'm sure you'll agree, it's the path of least resistance to file a tax return. And the truth is oftentimes somewhere in the middle for an entrepreneur. Understanding your asset protection is important. Maximizing on your taxes is very beneficial. But guess where a lot of people miss the boat? As an entrepreneur, what do you plan on buying in the next year, whether it be a house or a car? What do you need from a funding standpoint that you're missing because you only went to the attorney or only went to the CPA? And thank you for the endorsement, because I do think that that's where we have a superpower, is we want to look at all angles for the entrepreneur and help them set up to where they're creating success and they have a blueprint or a roadmap on what it's going to take to get funding and how they can maximize on their taxes. So I agree with everything you said. I love it.
And they don't have to do it. That's the key thing.
That's also a benefit.
And you've seen commercials on the Super Bowl and stuff like that. And like, well, what do? I do the accounting, I do the IT as a small business owner. You're doing everything but why you started the business.
Right.
So why not just hire someone to do all that other stuff and let them, that's what they specialize in, just like you specialize in putting in concrete or being an electrician. Those are things that I hire out for. I would never do something like that. Just think about it the same way. It's kind of like, go to the professionals that will bring in all these different kind of things and be able to come up with a good plan for you. So I hope that I'm going to have some information that's going to be so where you can go ahead and set up a free consultation, talk to them personally about what you're trying to do, and they'll come up with a comprehensive plan, and give you some ideas, and they'll talk to you, and there will be a link that's down below that you can go ahead and talk. But Tommy, thank you very much for joining me today. This is I've been wanting to do this for a while because I do get a lot of questions about funding and business credit, and hey, my personal credit's not so bad because I had to buy all this business equipment, and so I'm really glad that that Prime Corporate Services is around to be able to help the entrepreneur succeed and kind of do the things they may not always want to do.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I could talk about this stuff for another couple hours if you really wanted to, but we're happy to do the free consultation. To your point, I think that there's so much value in what you're doing and what this community has to offer, and we're here to help. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. This goes for anybody, and if there's other things that you feel like I could do to bring value, don't hesitate. So thank you for having me. It's fun.